In the year 2087, Earth was a planet that had seen its share of ups and downs. Humanity had come a long way since the early days of space exploration. Cities stretched into the skies, powered by clean energy sources like fusion reactors. Machines did much of the heavy lifting, leaving people free to focus on art, science, and leisure. But despite all the progress, humanity still carried old fears and divisions. Wars between nations had faded into history, but trust remained fragile. When other planets invited Earth to join galactic alliances or interstellar wars, Earth's leaders always said no. They chose to stay out of trouble, watching from afar as distant stars lit up with battles they wanted no part of. Jack Miller lived in this world, though he didn't think about it too much anymore. Once a soldier who fought in brutal conflicts, Jack now spent his days studying the stars from NASA's Lunar Observatory. The observatory sat on the far side of the moon, far away from Earth's noise and chaos. It was peaceful there, almost serene. Jack liked it because it gave him time to think, or maybe because it kept him busy enough not to dwell on the past. His wife, Emily Dawson, often teased him for being a dreamer. She was more grounded, working as a journalist covering global events back on Earth. Their lives were simple but happy, filled with quiet evenings talking about their daughter Lily, who was just starting school. One evening, as Jack adjusted the telescope to track a faint signal coming from deep space, something unusual caught his eye. On the screen, a cluster of dots moved steadily toward Earth's solar system. At first he thought it might be an asteroid field or some kind of natural phenomenon. But when he zoomed in, the shapes became clearer. These weren't rocks, they were ships. Massive ones, sleek and angular, glowing faintly against the blackness of space. Jack leaned closer, his heart pounding. He'd never seen anything like them before. He immediately flagged the discovery for review by NASA headquarters. Within hours, a team of analysts gathered to examine the data. Some suggested it could be a routine visit from one of the friendly alien species humanity had encountered over the years. Others weren't so sure. The ships were moving fast, faster than anything humans had ever built. They weren't broadcasting any kind of identification signal. That wasn't normal behavior for peaceful travelers. When Jack reported his findings to Dr. Lisa Monroe, the head of the observatory, she listened carefully but seemed hesitant to act. "We don't want to cause unnecessary panic," she said, her voice calm but firm. "Let's monitor them for now and see what happens." Jack nodded, though unease gnawed at him. Something about those ships felt wrong, like they weren't here for a casual visit. Back on Earth, Emily was chasing a story of her own. A source within the United Nations Defense Council, UNDC, had leaked classified documents to her. The papers hinted at ongoing discussions about a potential threat from outer space. At first, Emily dismissed it as another conspiracy theory. Governments always talked about threats. It was their job to prepare for worst-case scenarios. But then she noticed a pattern. Military bases were quietly ramping up activity. Satellites were repositioned. Even civilian air traffic controllers reported strange anomalies near Earth's orbit. Curious, Emily dug deeper. What she uncovered shocked her. The mysterious fleet heading toward Earth belonged to the Krylos Empire, a powerful and ruthless civilization known for conquering weaker planets. According to the leaked information, the Krylos had already wiped out dozens of species across the galaxy, enslaving survivors and stripping their worlds bare of resources. They left nothing behind but barren wasteland. Emily called Jack right away. "You need to look at this," she said, her tone urgent. "I think whatever you saw out there, it's bad news." Jack frowned. "How bad?" "Really bad," Emily replied. "These guys aren't tourists, they're predators. If we don't do something soon, we might end up like everyone else they've destroyed." That night, neither of them slept well. Jack stared at the images of the approaching fleet, playing Emily's words in his mind. Predators. The word sent chills down his spine. He remembered the horrors of Wartha screams, the bloodshed, the senseless destruction. He had hoped humanity would never have to face that again, yet here it was, staring him in the face once more. The next morning, the UNDC held an emergency meeting to discuss the situation. Leaders from around the world argued fiercely about how to respond. Some advocated for immediate surrender, believing resistance would be futile against such advanced technology. Others insisted on preparing for battle, even if it meant certain death. Jack and Emily were invited to attend as civilian advisors, representing science and media respectively. During the heated debate, Jack stood up and addressed the room. "We can't just roll over and give up," he said, his voice steady despite the tension in the air. "If we show weakness, they'll take everything we have. We need to fight back." "But how?" Someone shouted. "They're light years ahead of us." Jack pointed to a presentation slide showing schematics for an experimental quantum weapon developed by NASA. "This is our chance," he explained. "It's not ready yet, but if we work together, we might be able to finish it in time. It's risky, but it's better than doing nothing." Emily chimed in, addressing the crowd with a mix of passion and determination. "People are scared," she admitted. "But fear doesn't mean we should give up. We've faced challenges before, and we've overcome them. This is no different. Let's stand united for ourselves, for our children, for the future of humanity." Words resonated with many in the room, sparking murmurs of agreement. Still, doubt lingered. Could humanity really hold its own against such a formidable foe? Before anyone could decide, the Krylos made the choice for them. Without warning, they launched a devastating attack on Mars' largest colony outpost. Millions died in seconds, as the base was obliterated by a single blast. Panic swept across Earth as videos of the destruction spread online. People fled their homes, seeking shelter underground. Governments declared states of emergency, scrambling to organize defenses. Amid the chaos, Jack and Emily found themselves at the center of a growing storm. Jack worked tirelessly with scientists to refine the quantum weapon, knowing it might be humanity's only hope. Emily used her platform to rally support, broadcasting messages of courage and defiance to inspire those who felt overwhelmed by despair. As the days passed, the reality of the situation sank in. Earth had refused to join the war until now, but the Krylos had picked the wrong enemy. Humanity wasn't perfect, but it was resilient. And when pushed to the brink, it had a way of surprising even itself. The attack on Mars sent shockwaves through humanity. It was the first time Earth had witnessed such raw, unrelenting power from an alien force. The Krylos didn't bother with negotiations or warnings, they simply struck, leaving no room for doubt about their intentions. News outlets replayed footage of the destruction endlessly, towering colony domes collapsing into dust, escape pods exploding mid-flight, and silent screams frozen in the vacuum of space. For the first time in decades, fear gripped the planet like a vice. Jack Miller watched the reports from his station at the Lunar Observatory. His hands trembled as he sifted through new data streaming in from the fleet. The Krylos ships were still advancing, their trajectory clear. They weren't heading toward Mars anymore. They were coming straight for Earth. Jack felt a knot tighten in his stomach. He knew what was coming next, but there was nothing he could do to stop it. All he could do was prepare. Emily Dawson, on the other hand, was already on the move. Her phone buzzed constantly with calls from sources, colleagues, and even government officials desperate for answers. She had spent years reporting on global crises, but this was different. This wasn't just another war or natural disaster. It was an existential threat. Every word she spoke, every article she wrote, carried weight now. People looked to her for guidance, for hope. And though she tried to stay calm, Emily couldn't shake the feeling that humanity was running out of time. The Krylos finally broke their silence. 3 days after the attack on Mars, their message came not as a whisper or a request, but as a deafening roar broadcast directly into every communication device on Earth. Phones lit up, televisions flickered, and radios crackled with the same chilling voice. Commander Varnock, leader of the Krylos Empire, introduced himself with cold efficiency. "We are the Krylos," he declared, his tone devoid of emotion. "Your existence is insignificant. Surrender your resources and technology, or face annihilation." Varnock's ultimatum left no room for negotiation. To prove his point, he ordered another strike, this time targeting Earth itself. Cities across the globe erupted in flames as Krylos weapons tore through skyscrapers, military bases, and civilian neighborhoods alike. New York burned under a rain of plasma fire. Tokyo crumbled beneath a barrage of energy beams. London disappeared in a blinding flash of light. Billions died within minutes, and those who survived fled underground, seeking refuge in bunkers and subway tunnels. Panic spread faster than the fires consuming the surface. Governments scrambled to respond, but decades of neutrality had left humanity woefully unprepared. Weapon systems designed to combat human enemies proved useless against Krylos shields. Military leaders argued over strategies while politicians debated whether surrender might be the only way to save what remained of humanity. The United Nations Defense Council (UNDC) convened an emergency summit, bringing together world leaders to decide Earth's fate. Jack and Emily attended the meeting as civilian advisors, their roles thrust upon them by circumstance. Jack stood before the council, clutching a tablet filled with schematics of NASA's experimental quantum weapon. "This is our best chance," he said, his voice steady despite the chaos around him. "It's not ready yet, but if we focus all our resources, we can finish it in time. We have to try." Emily nodded in agreement, stepping forward to address the room. "People are scared," she admitted. "But fear doesn't mean we should give up. Look at what we've built. Look at how far we've come. If we stand together, we can fight back. We owe it to everyone who's already lost their lives." Her words resonated with some, but skepticism lingered. Many doubted the feasibility of completing the quantum weapon in time. Others questioned whether it would even work against the Krylos' advanced technology. Still, the idea sparked a glimmer of hope, a fragile thread holding humanity together as the world burned above them. As the debate raged on, the Krylos launched another wave of attacks. This time, they targeted critical infrastructure, power grids, water supplies, and communication networks. Entire regions plunged into darkness, cutting off survivors from one another. Hospitals overflowed with wounded civilians, and food shortages began to emerge as supply chains collapsed. The once bustling cities of Earth became ghost towns, streets littered with debris and abandoned vehicles. Despite the devastation, small acts of resistance began to take shape. In Chicago, a group of engineers rigged makeshift defenses using scavenged materials. In Sydney, volunteers formed rescue teams to pull survivors from the rubble. Even children joined the effort, painting messages of defiance on walls and handing out supplies to those in need. Humanity's spirit refused to die, even as the odds stacked higher and higher. Jack threw himself into the development of the quantum weapon. Working around the clock alongside a team of scientists and technicians, sleep became a luxury he couldn't afford. Coffee fueled his long hours in the lab, where equations sprawled across whiteboards and prototypes fizzled with sparks. Progress was slow, frustratingly so, but Jack refused to give up. Each setback only strengthened his resolve. "If we don't finish this," he told his team one night, "there won't be a tomorrow for any of us." Meanwhile, Emily used her platform to keep morale alive. She traveled from shelter to shelter, interviewing survivors and sharing stories of courage and resilience. Her broadcasts reached millions, offering a lifeline to those struggling to hold on. "They think we're weak," she said during one particularly emotional segment. "They think we'll break, but they don't know us. They don't know what we're capable of when we stand united." Her words inspired acts of bravery that rippled across the globe. In Rio de Janeiro, a young man named Carlos led a daring raid on a Krylos supply depot, stealing vital components needed for the quantum weapon. In Moscow, a retired pilot named Anya volunteered to fly reconnaissance missions, risking her life to gather intelligence on enemy movements. Even ordinary citizens found ways to contribute, donating food, medicine, and tools to aid the resistance effort. But the Krylos weren't idle either. As humanity fought to regroup, the invaders tightened their grip. Drones patrolled the skies, hunting down pockets of resistance. Ground forces swept through ruins, capturing anyone foolish enough to fight back. Survivors whispered tales of Krylos' experiments of humans taken alive and subjected to horrific procedures. No one knew exactly what the Krylos wanted beyond resources, but their cruelty left little doubt about their intentions. Amid the chaos, Jack and Emily found moments of quiet reflection. Late one evening, after another grueling day in the lab, Jack stepped outside to gaze at the stars. The moon's surface stretched endlessly before him, untouched by the horrors unfolding below. For a moment, he allowed himself to imagine a different future, one where humanity thrived among the stars instead of cowering in fear. It was a fleeting thought, but it gave him strength. Emily joined him shortly afterward, wrapping a blanket around her shoulders against the chill. "Do you think we'll make it?" she asked softly, her eyes fixed on the distant glow of Earth. "I don't know," Jack admitted. "But I do know one thing: we can't let them win, not without a fight." Emily smiled faintly, squeezing his hand. "Then let's give them a fight they'll never forget." They returned to their tasks, knowing full well that the road ahead would be long and painful. But for the first time in days, hope burned brighter than despair. Humanity had been pushed to the brink, but it hadn't broken, not yet. And as long as people like Jack and Emily kept fighting, there was still a chance to turn the tide. The resistance against the Krylos was growing, but it wasn't enough. Humanity's efforts were scattered and disorganized, like sparks struggling to ignite a fire. Jack Miller knew they needed something more, something that could tip the balance in their favor. As he worked tirelessly on the quantum weapon, his mind kept returning to one question. What if they weren't alone? What if there were others out there who had faced the Krylos before? That thought lingered in his mind until one day it came true. A message arrived at NASA headquarters, not from Earth, but from deep space. The transmission was garbled at first, filled with static and strange tones. But as technicians worked to decode it, the voice of an alien emerged, speaking broken but understandable English. "This is Captain Lyra of the Zanari fleet," the voice said. "We have been monitoring your struggle. If you wish to survive, we must speak." At first, many dismissed the message as a trick or trap. After all, humanity had learned the hard way not to trust outsiders. But Jack saw an opportunity. He convinced Dr. Lisa Monroe, the head of the observatory, to respond. "Tell them we're listening," he urged. "They can help us fight. The Krylos, we need to hear them out." The reply came quickly. The Zinari identified themselves as a rogue faction of aliens who had once been enslaved by the Krylos. Yes. They had spent centuries rebuilding their society in secret, biding their time until they could strike back. Now, they offered Earth a deal, in exchange for safe passage through human-controlled space. They would provide advanced technology and tactical support to defeat the invaders. Jack and Emily were summoned to another emergency meeting of the United Nations Defense Council UNDC to discuss the proposal. Tensions ran high. Some leaders argued that allying with unknown aliens was too risky, while others believed it might be humanity's only chance. Jack stood up to address the room, his voice calm but firm. "I know this is scary," he said. "But think about it, the Zinari have fought the Krylos before. They know their weaknesses. If we work together, we might actually stand a chance." Emily added her perspective, appealing to the Council's sense of unity. "We've already lost so much," she reminded them. "Cities, families, lives. Do we really want to risk losing everything because we're afraid to trust someone new? These aliens are offering us a lifeline. Let's take it." After hours of heated debate, the Council agreed to meet with the Zinari. A delegation, including Jack and Emily, traveled to a neutral location in orbit, a derelict space station abandoned decades earlier. There, they met Captain Lyra and her crew face to face. The Zinari looked nothing like humans. Their skin shimmered with iridescent hues, and their eyes glowed faintly in the dim light. Despite their alien appearance, they carried themselves with dignity and purpose. Lyra wasted no time getting to the point. "The Krylos are ruthless," she explained. "They see weaker species as tools to be used and discarded. We escaped their grasp once, but we cannot defeat them alone. Together, however, we may succeed." She went on to share critical information about the Krylos' tactics and technology. One detail stood out above the rest. The Empire relied heavily on centralized command hubs to coordinate its forces. Destroying these hubs would cripple their operations, leaving their ships confused and vulnerable. Lyra also offered shielding, technology that could protect human fighters from Krylos' weapons, giving them a fighting chance in battle. But trust didn't come easily. Many members of the delegation questioned the Zinari's motives, fearing betrayal. It was Emily who bridged the gap. Using her skills as a journalist, she interviewed Lyra and her crew, documenting their stories of oppression and survival. Through her reports, she showed humanity that the Zenari weren't so different from them. They too had suffered under the Krylos tyranny, and they too wanted freedom. As trust grew, so did collaboration. Engineers worked side by side with Zenari technicians to integrate their shielding technology into human ships. Military strategists pored over maps of the Krylos fleet, planning daring raids on key targets. And Jack continued refining the quantum weapon, knowing it would play a crucial role in the final assault. While progress accelerated, personal connections began to form between humans and Zenari. Jack found himself drawn to Lyra's quiet determination. Though they communicated through translators, they shared a mutual respect born of shared struggles. Emily, meanwhile, bonded with a young Zenari named Talon, who served as Lyra's second-in-command. Talon spoke passionately about the Zenari's dream of reclaiming their homeworld, inspiring Emily to write a series of articles highlighting their resilience. Despite these moments of hope, challenges remained. Supplies were running low, and morale among survivors fluctuated. In some regions, fear gave way to despair as people questioned whether resistance was worth the cost. To combat this, Emily launched a global campaign called Stand United. She traveled to shelters and bunkers, sharing stories of bravery and reminding people why they were fighting. Her words resonated deeply, reigniting the spark of defiance that had fueled humanity since the beginning. One evening, as Jack reviewed schematics for the quantum weapon, Lyra approached him. "Your people amaze me," she said. "Even now, when everything seems lost, they refuse to give up." Jack smiled faintly. "Desperation does that to you. When you have nothing left to lose, you find strength you didn't know you had." Nodded thoughtfully. "Perhaps that is why we chose to ally with you. You remind us of ourselves broken, but unyielding." Their conversation shifted to strategy. Together, they devised a bold plan: infiltrate the Krylos flagship and disable its central AI core. Without it, the entire fleet would descend into chaos. It was a dangerous mission, requiring precise timing and flawless execution. Certain death not just for the team, but for everyone counting on them. Volunteers stepped forward immediately. Among them were Rachel Carter, a fearless fighter pilot known for her quick reflexes; Alex Bennett, a brilliant engineer tasked with disabling the AI core; and Marcus Hayes, a medic whose calm demeanor masked a troubled past. Each member brought unique skills to the table, forming a tight-knit unit determined to see the mission through. As preparations intensified, tensions rose within the team. Rachel clashed with Marcus over leadership decisions, accusing him of being too cautious. Alex struggled with self-doubt, questioning whether he was truly capable of completing such a complex task. Yvonne Jack felt the weight of responsibility pressing down on him. But Lyra reminded them of what was at stake. "Fear is natural," she said during a briefing. "But letting it control you will only lead to failure. Focus on the mission and trust each other." Finally, the day of the operation arrived. The team boarded a cloaked Zenari vessel, slipping past Krylos patrols undetected. As they approached the flagship, nerves ran high. None of them had ever seen anything like it, a colossal structure bristling with weapons and surrounded by smaller escort ships. Its surface gleamed menacingly in the starlight, a fortress floating in the void. Inside the ship, the air was thick with tension. Corridors stretched endlessly in every direction, lined with glowing panels and humming machinery. Strange symbols adorned the walls, pulsating faintly as if alive. Every step felt like walking into the belly of a beast. The team moved cautiously, guided by Lyra's intel. They encountered patrols of Krylos soldiers, tall, armored figures with glowing red eyes. Engagements were brief but intense, relying on stealth and speed to avoid detection. Each victory brought them closer to their goal, but also deeper into enemy territory. When they finally reached the chamber housing the AI core, Alex knelt beside it, his hands trembling as he connected wires and adjusted settings. "I need 5 minutes," he whispered, sweat dripping from his brow. Outside, alarms blared as the Krylos realized their presence. Reinforcements poured into the area, forcing Rachel and Marcus to hold the line. Rachel unleashed a barrage of gunfire, her movements fluid and precise. "Hurry up," she shouted at Alex, dodging plasma blasts. Beside her, Marcus patched up a wound on his arm, gritting his teeth against the pain. "We can't keep this up forever," he muttered. Back. In the chamber, Alex worked furiously, his mind racing through calculations. Just as he finished entering the final sequence, the door burst open. A massive biomechanical creature lunged into the room, its body a grotesque fusion of flesh and metal. Its roar shook the walls, sending shivers down everyone's spines. Rachel and Marcus exchanged grim looks. "We'll handle this," Rachel said, stepping forward with her weapon raised. "Just finish the job." Alex nodded, tears streaming down his face. He activated the override, watching as the AI core sparked and sputtered. On the screen, lines of code scrolled rapidly, signaling the shutdown process. Meanwhile, Rachel and Marcus engaged the creature in a desperate battle, buying precious seconds for the system to collapse. As the core finally powered down, the entire ship shuddered violently. Lights flickered and gravity fluctuated wildly. The team regrouped, battered, but alive. "Let's get out of here," Jack ordered, leading the way back to their escape route. Behind them, the flagship erupted in flames, its systems collapsing. Without the AI core to guide it, the rest of the Krylos fleet followed suit, descending into disarray. Back on Earth, survivors cheered as news of the victory spread. For the first time in weeks, hope burned brighter than fear. The escape from the Krylos flagship was anything but smooth. As the team raced through the crumbling corridors, explosions rocked the ship, sending debris flying in all directions. The walls groaned under the strain of collapsing systems, and the air grew thick with smoke. Every step felt like a gamble, every breath a risk. But they didn't stop, not for a second. They couldn't. Rachel Carter led the way, her weapon at the ready. Her sharp eyes scanned the chaos around them, looking for any sign of danger. Behind her, Alex Bennett stumbled, his hands still trembling from the intense focus it had taken. To disable the AI core, Marcus Hayes brought up the rear, clutching a medkit to his side where a piece of shrapnel had grazed him during the fight with the Ed. Blood seeped through his makeshift bandage, but he didn't complain. There wasn't time. Jack Miller stayed close to Alex, urging him forward. "Keep moving," Jack said, his voice firm despite the fear gnawing at his gut. "We're almost there." Lyra's voice crackled over their coms, guiding them toward the extraction point. "Hurry," she urged. "The ship is destabilizing. Faster than expected. You have less than 3 minutes before it implodes." 3 minutes. It wasn't much, but it was enough. If they pushed themselves to the limit, the team sprinted down the narrow hallways, dodging falling chunks of metal and bursts of energy from malfunctioning panels. The lights flickered erratically, plunging the corridors into moments of darkness that left them disoriented. Each second stretched on forever, the sound of their pounding footsteps echoing like a countdown to doom. As they approached the hangar bay where their cloaked Zinnerai vessel awaited, Rachel spotted movement ahead. A group of Krylos soldiers emerged. From a side corridor, their glowing red eyes locking onto the team. Without hesitation, Rachel raised her weapon and fired, forcing the soldiers to take cover. "Go!" she shouted to the others. "I'll hold them off!" "No," Marcus yelled back, grabbing her arm. "We're not leaving you behind." "I'll be fine," Rachel insisted, her voice steady, despite the desperation in her eyes. "Just go. Get out of here while you still can." For a moment, no one moved. Then Jack stepped forward, placing a hand on Rachel's shoulder. "We don't leave anyone behind," he said firmly. "Not now, not ever." Reluctantly, Rachel nodded and rejoined the group. Together, they pressed on, weaving through the firefight as plasma bolts whizzed past them. The Krylos soldiers pursued relentlessly, their mechanical voices barking commands in an alien tongue. The team reached the hangar just as another explosion tore through the deck above, raining fire and debris onto the battlefield. Inside the hangar, the Zinari ship stood waiting, its sleek form shimmering faintly in the dim light. Lyra's voice came through again, urgent and clear. Get aboard. We're launching immediately. One by one, the team scrambled onto the vessel. Rachel covered the rear, firing until the last possible moment before diving inside. The hatch sealed shut behind her, cutting off the sounds of destruction outside. Everyone collapsed onto the floor, gasping for air as the ship lifted off. Through the viewport, they watched the Krylos flagship break apart, consumed by flames and collapsing inward like a dying star. The sight was both horrifying and beautiful, a testament to their impossible victory. For a brief moment, silence filled the cabin as the weight of what they'd accomplished sank in, but the relief was short-lived. Rachel leaned against the wall, her face pale and streaked with soot. "That was too close," she muttered, her voice barely audible over the hum of the engines. "It always is," Marcus replied, wincing as he adjusted his bandage. He glanced at Alex, who sat hunched over, staring blankly at his hands. Marcus said softly, "You did good back there. We wouldn't have made it without you." Alex looked up, his eyes wide with disbelief. I thought I was going to mess it up. What if I had?" "What if you didn't?" Jack interrupted, his tone gentle but firm. "Damn. And because of you, we've got a fighting chance. That's all we can ask for." Lyra entered the cabin then, her iridescent skin glowing faintly in the low light. She surveyed the team, her expression unreadable. "You've done something remarkable today," she said finally. "The Krylos will not recover easily from this blow, but our work is far from over." Emily Dawson joined them shortly after. Having monitored the mission remotely from Earth, her face appeared on a screen, her features lined with worry, but also pride. "You're heroes," she told them. "Every single one of you. People are already talking about what you've done. This gives us hope, or hope." Her words hung in the air, heavy with meaning. Hope. It was a fragile thing, easily shattered, yet powerful enough to change the course of history. For weeks, humanity had been drowning in despair. Now, thanks to the bravery of a handful of individuals, the despair began to lift. Back on Earth, news of the successful mission spread quickly. Survivors gathered around radios and screens, listening. 2 reports of the Krylos fleet's collapse. Cheers erupted in bunkers and shelters, echoing through tunnels and underground cities. Emily worked tirelessly to document the story, interviewing members of the team and sharing their experiences with the world. Her articles painted vivid pictures of courage and sacrifice, inspiring millions to keep fighting. But amidst the celebration, grief lingered. Rachel refused to speak about the biomechanical creature she and Marcus had faced, retreating into herself whenever the topic arose. Marcus, too, seemed haunted, though he tried to hide it behind his usual calm demeanor. Even Alex struggled to shake the guilt of nearly failing, despite everyone's reassurances. Jack noticed the toll it was taking on them. Late one night, as the ship traveled back to Earth, he gathered the team in the common area. "We've been through hell," he began, his voice soft but steady, "and none of us came out unscathed. But we're still here. That means something. It means we're strong enough to keep going, to keep fighting. And we need to lean on each other to do it." His words struck a chord. Slowly, the barriers began to fall. Rachel spoke first, her voice trembling as she recounted the terror of facing the creature. Marcus listened quietly, nodding in understanding, before admitting how close he'd come. 2. Giving up during the battle. Alex confessed his fears of inadequacy, tears streaming down his face as he relived the stress of disabling the AI core by the time they finished. Dawn was breaking outside the ship's windows. The sky glowed faintly with the promise of a new day. For the first time since the mission began, the team felt a sense of unities, just as soldiers or allies. But as people bound together by shared pain and triumph, when they returned to Earth, they were greeted as heroes. Crowds lined the streets, cheering and waving flags as the team disembarked. Children held up handmade signs reading "Thank you" and "We believe." It was overwhelming, but also humbling. Jack, Rachel, Alex, and Marcus knew they hadn't done it alone. They owed their success to countless others who had supported them along the way. Lyra and the Zinari received equal praise. presence accepted without question. Humanity's initial distrust of the aliens had vanished, replaced by gratitude and respect. Talon, Lyra's second-in-command, became a familiar face in interviews, speaking passionately about the importance of unity in the face of tyranny. His words resonated deeply, bridging the gap between species and fostering a newfound sense of camaraderie. As days turned into weeks, the alliance between humans and Zanari grew stronger. Engineers continued refining the quantum weapon, incorporating feedback from both sides to improve its effectiveness. Military leaders coordinated strategies, planning joint operations to reclaim lost territory and drive the remaining Krylos forces away from Earth. Meanwhile, Emily published a series of articles, highlighting the personal stories of those involved in the resistance. From pilots and engineers to doctors and volunteers, she captured the essence of humanity's resilience. Her work inspired a global movement called Stand United, encouraging people to contribute however they could, whether by building defenses, caring for survivors, or simply spreading messages of hope. Despite these strides, challenges remained. The Krylos weren't defeated yet. While their flagship's destruction had dealt a significant blow, scattered remnants of their fleet continued to harass Earth's defenses. Supplies were still scarce, and rebuilding efforts faced constant setbacks. Yet the spirit of defiance burned brighter than ever. People refused to give up, knowing that surrender meant losing everything. One evening, as Jack stood on the roof of NASA headquarters, gazing at the stars, Emily joined him. "Do you think we'll win?" she asked, her voice tinged with uncertainty. Jack smiled faintly, his eyes reflecting the distant glow of planets and moons. "We already have," he replied. "Not completely, maybe. But we've proven that. We're capable of standing up to them. That's half the battle." Emily nodded, leaning against him. "Then let's finish the other half." Together they looked toward the future filled with challenges, yes, but also possibilities. Humanity had chosen to fight, to stand united against an enemy that sought to destroy them. And in doing so, they had discovered a strength they never knew they possessed. The road ahead would be long and difficult, but they walked it together with hope in their hearts and fire in their souls. The victory over the Krylos flagship was a turning point, but it wasn't the end of the war. The Krylos Empire still held significant power, and their scattered forces continued to attack Earth's defenses with relentless determination. Humanity had proven it could fight back, but the cost of resistance was mounting. Supplies dwindled, casualties increased, and the strain on survivors grew heavier with each passing day. Despite the newfound unity between humans and Zanari, the path forward remained uncertain. Jack Miller spent most of his time working on improvements to the quantum weapon. After its success in disabling the AI core of the Krylos flagship, the device became Earth's greatest hope. Scientists and engineers poured their energy into refining its design, making it more efficient and easier to deploy. Jack led the effort, driven by a mix of guilt and resolve. He couldn't shake the memory of Alex's trembling hands as he worked on the core, or the way Marcus winced every time he moved. These sacrifices weighed heavily on him, fueling his determination to ensure no one else had to endure such risks. Rachel Carter, meanwhile, threw herself into training pilots for future missions. Her reputation as a fearless leader had grown after her actions aboard the Krylos flagship, and she now commanded a squadron tasked with defending Earth's skies. She pushed her team hard, demanding precision and discipline. Yet beneath her tough exterior, Rachel carried scars that wouldn't heal easily. The image of the biomechanical creature haunted her dreams, and she often found herself staring at the horizon, lost in thought. Still, she refused to let fear control her. "We've got this," she told her pilots during briefings. "If we stand together, we can handle anything they throw at us." Marcus Hayes focused on healing, not just physically, but emotionally. His wound from the mission had mostly healed, though it ached when he overexerted himself. More troubling were the memories of the chaos inside the flagship, the deafening roars of the creature, the flashes of light as explosions tore through the corridors, and the sight of his teammates battered and bleeding. To cope, Marcus threw himself into his role as a medic, treating injured fighters and offering comfort to those struggling with trauma. He believed that helping others would help him find peace, even if it took time. Alex Bennett struggled the most. Though everyone praised him for his role in disabling the AI core, he couldn't shake the feeling that he'd only succeeded by sheer luck. Every night, he replayed the moment in his mind, the wires sparking, the code scrolling across the screen, the overwhelming pressure to get everything right. He questioned whether he deserved the admiration people gave him, wondering what might have happened if he'd failed. Jack noticed Alex's self-doubt and made an effort to check in with him. Regularly. "You're stronger than you think," Jack told him one evening. "And we need you now more than ever." As the weeks passed, humanity began reclaiming territory lost to the Krylos. With the Xenari's advanced shielding technology and tactical guidance, human forces launched counterattacks against enemy outposts. Small victories accumulated, bolstering morale and giving survivors a renewed sense of purpose. Emily Dawson documented these efforts, traveling to battle zones and refugee camps to share stories of resilience. Her reports highlighted not just the heroes of the resistance, but also ordinary people who contributed in meaningful ways: farmers growing food in underground greenhouses, teachers educating children in makeshift classrooms, and volunteers repairing damaged infrastructure. But the Krylos weren't idle either. They adapted quickly to humanity's new strategies, deploying swarms of drones and automated weapons to overwhelm defenders. In some regions, they resorted to scorched earth tactics, destroying everything in their retreat to deny resources to their enemies. The devastation left behind was heartbreaking, forcing survivors to flee once again. Emily visited one such area, city reduced to rubble, and recorded the stories of those who had lost everything. "They took our homes, our families," said an elderly man named Harold, tears streaming down his face. "But they won't take our spirit. We'll rebuild. We always do." Back at NASA headquarters, tensions ran high as the team prepared for the next major offensive. Intelligence gathered by the Xenari revealed that the Krylos had established a secondary command hub in orbit around Jupiter's moon Europa. Destroying this hub would deal another crippling blow to their operations, potentially ending the war for good. But reaching it wouldn't be easy. The hub was heavily guarded, surrounded by layers of defense systems designed to repel any attack. Jack proposed using the quantum weapon again, but this time mounted on a fleet of stealth ships capable of bypassing Krylos patrols. Lyra agreed, offering Xenari vessels equipped with cloaking technology to transport the weapon into position. The plan required perfect coordination between human and Xenari forces, leaving little room for error. Failure meant certain defeat, not just for the mission, but for humanity itself. As preparations intensified, personal connections deepened. Jack and Lyra spent long hours discussing strategy, their mutual respect evolving into something more profound. Both had seen the horrors of war and understood the weight of leadership. They shared quiet moments of reflection, finding solace in each other's company. "Your people inspire me," Lyra admitted one evening as they reviewed plans. Under the glow of a holographic map, even when faced with impossible odds, they refused to give up. "They remind me of you," Jack replied, smiling faintly. "Broken, maybe, but unyielding." Emily noticed the bond forming between them and wrote about it in one of her articles. "In the darkest times, we find unexpected allies," she wrote. "Together, humans and Xenari are proving that differences don't divide us. They make us stronger." Her words resonated deeply, reinforcing the alliance between the two species. The day of the operation arrived, bringing with it a mix of excitement and dread. Pilots climbed into cockpits, technicians double-checked equipment, and commanders delivered final briefings. Rachel stood before her squadron, her voice steady despite the nerves coursing through her veins. "Today, we strike back," she said. "Not just for ourselves, but for everyone who's counting on us. Let's show the Krylos what happens when they pick the wrong enemy." As the fleet launched, silence fell across Earth. Survivors gathered around screens, watching live feeds of the mission. Children clutched stuffed animals, parents held each other close, and soldiers prayed for victory. The stakes were higher than ever, and everyone knew it. The journey to Europa was tense. Cloaked ships navigated asteroid fields and avoided Krylos patrols, inching closer to their target. Inside the lead vessel, Jack monitored the quantum weapon status, ensuring it was ready for deployment. Beside him, Alex sat hunched over a console, running diagnostics and adjusting settings. "It's stable," Alex reported, his voice tinged with nervousness, for now. When they reached the command hub, the team split into two groups. One group, led by Rachel, engaged the outer defenses, drawing attention away from the main objective. The second group, including Jack, Alex, and Marcus, infiltrated the hub to plant the quantum weapon. The mission unfolded like clockwork at first. Rachel's squadron executed daring maneuvers, keeping Krylos' forces occupied while the infiltration team slipped past undetected. Inside the hub, the air was cold and sterile, lit by pulsating blue lights. Strange symbols covered the walls, glowing faintly as if alive. Jack and his team moved cautiously, guided by Lyra's intel. They encountered minimal resistance thanks to Rachel's diversion, but the tension was palpable. Every step felt like walking into a trap. When they finally reached the core chamber, Alex knelt beside the device, his hands steady despite the adrenaline coursing through him. "I need 2 minutes," he whispered, connecting wires and entering commands. Jack kept watch, his weapon drawn, while Marcus scanned the area for threats. Suddenly, alarms blared, and the doors sealed shut. A squad of Krylos soldiers stormed into the chamber, their weapons trained on the intruders. Jack raised his hands, stalling for time. "Alex," he shouted. "How much longer?" 30 seconds. Alex replied, sweat dripping from his brow. Marcus stepped forward, placing himself between the soldiers and Alex. "Stay focused," he said calmly. "I've got this." With a surge of courage, Marcus charged at the soldiers, firing wildly to create confusion. His actions bought Alex precious seconds, but they came at a cost. A plasma bolt struck Marcus in the chest, sending him crashing to the ground. Blood pooled beneath him as he gasped for air. "No!" Jack yelled, rushing to Marcus's side. But there was nothing he could do. Marcus smiled weakly, his eyes filled. With determination, "Finish it," he whispered, before closing his eyes for the last time. Tears blurred Jack's vision, but he forced himself to focus. "Alex," he called out. Now, Alex activated the quantum weapon, watching as the core sparked and sputtered. The chamber shook violently, and the lights flickered. Jack grabbed Alex and pulled him toward the exit, dragging Marcus's body with them. Behind them, the hub collapsed in a fiery explosion, taking dozens of Krylos soldiers with it. Outside, Rachel's squadron fought valiantly to cover their escape. Ships darted through space, dodging blasts and retaliating with precision. When Jack and Alex boarded their vessel, Rachel gave the order to retreat. "Let's go home," she said, her voice breaking with emotion. The destruction of the Krylos' secondary command hub marked a turning point in the war, but it wasn't the end. The Empire still held vast resources and advanced technology, and their resolve to conquer Earth remained unshaken. Yet, something had changed, not just in humanity's ability to fight back, but in their spirit. The victories won through sacrifice and unity had ignited a fire that refused to be extinguished. People no longer saw themselves as victims. They were survivors, fighters, and builders of a better future. Jack Miller stood at the forefront of this transformation. In the weeks following the mission to Europa, he worked tirelessly to improve the quantum weapon, making it more reliable and easier to produce. Factories across the globe began mass-producing smaller versions of the device, capable of disabling Krylos ships and weapons on a larger scale. Jack's team tested each prototype rigorously, ensuring they would perform under pressure. Though exhaustion lingered in his eyes, he pushed forward, driven by the memory of Marcus Hayes and all those who had given their lives for the cause. Rachel Ada continued leading her squadron with unwavering determination. Her pilots had become legends among the resistance, their names spoken with reverence in shelters and bunkers. Rachel herself was hailed as a hero, but she rejected the title. Not special, she told anyone who praised her. I'm just doing my job. Still, her leadership inspired others to join the fight. New recruits poured into training programs, eager to take to the skies and defend Earth. Rachel made sure they were ready, drilling them relentlessly until they matched her high standards. Alex Bennett found purpose in his grief. After Marcus's death, he struggled to forgive himself for surviving when so many others hadn't, but Jack's constant support helped him see that guilt wouldn't honor Marcus's memory, action would. Alex threw himself into his work, refining the quantum weapon and training others to use it. He also became a mentor to younger engineers, sharing his knowledge and encouraging them to innovate. Slowly, his confidence returned, and with it came a renewed sense of hope. Marcus believed in me, Alex said one evening during a late-night conversation with Jack. I owe it to him to keep going. Emily Dawson played a crucial role in shaping humanity's narrative during the final stages of the war. Her articles and broadcasts reached millions, reminding people why they were fighting. She highlighted acts of bravery and resilience, from soldiers risking their lives to civilians rebuilding shattered cities. Emily also documented the growing bond between humans and Zinari, showcasing how collaboration had turned the tide against the Krylos. Her stories fostered trust and understanding, strengthening the alliance that had become Earth's greatest asset. Lyra and the Zinari remained steadfast allies, providing not only technology, but also moral support. Together, human and Zinari forces launched coordinated attacks on remaining Krylos outposts, reclaiming territory piece by piece. Talaine, Lyra's second-in-command, often accompanied Emily on visits to refugee camps, offering words of encouragement to survivors. His presence reassured people that they weren't alone, that even in the darkest times, help could come from unexpected places. As the war dragged on, humanity faced new challenges. Food shortages worsened as supply chains struggled to recover, and energy reserves dwindled due to constant battles. Disease spread in overcrowded shelters, straining medical resources. Despite these hardships, communities banded together to find solutions. Farmers grew crops in hydroponic systems. Teachers organized classes for children using salvaged materials, and doctors worked around the clock to care for the sick. Every act of kindness, no matter how small, contributed to the collective effort to survive one day. Intelligence reports revealed the location of the Krylos Empire's primary stronghold, a massive fortress orbiting Saturn. It served as their central base of operations, housing both their military command and key manufacturing facilities. Destroying it would cripple the Empire permanently, ending the war once and for all. However, reaching the stronghold would require an unprecedented level of coordination and risk. The fortress was heavily fortified. It's protected by layers of shields and automated defenses designed to repel any attack. Jack, Rachel, Alex, and Lyra gathered to plan the assault. They knew this mission would demand everything they had and more. This is it, Jack said during a strategy meeting. If we succeed, we win. If we fail, he didn't need to finish the sentence. Everyone understood the stakes. The plan involved 3 phases: infiltration, distraction, and destruction. A small team led by Jack and Alex would infiltrate the fortress to plant quantum weapons at critical points, disabling its core systems. Meanwhile, Rachel's squadron would engage the outer defenses, drawing attention away from the infiltration team. Finally, a combined fleet of human and Zinari ships would launch a full-scale assault, overwhelming the fortress before reinforcements could arrive. Preparations took weeks, with every detail scrutinized and rehearsed. Pilots practiced formations, engineers fine-tuned equipment, and commanders ran simulations to anticipate every possible scenario. Emotions ran high as the day of the operation approached. Families said goodbye to loved ones, unsure if they'd ever see them again. Children clung to parents, tears streaming down their faces. Yet, amid the fear, there was also resolve, as humanity had come too far to give up now. On the morning of the mission, the fleet assembled in orbit around Earth. Ships stretched across the sky, their hulls gleaming in the sunlight. Survivors gathered to watch the launch, holding banners and flags emblazoned with messages of hope. As engines roared to life, cheers erupted, echoing into space. The battle for Saturn had begun. The journey was tense, every moment filled with anticipation. Cloaked vessels navigated asteroid fields and avoided Krylos patrols, inching closer to the fortress. Inside the lead ship, Jack reviewed plans with Alex, ensuring the quantum weapons were ready for deployment. Rachel communicated with her squadron, issuing final instructions. "Stay sharp," she said over the comms. "We're counting on you." When they reached the fortress, the operation unfolded with precision. Rachel's squadron executed daring maneuvers, luring Krylos forces into traps and creating chaos in the skies. Their diversion allowed Jack and Alex to slip past the outer defenses undetected. Inside the fortress, the air was cold and oppressive, lit by eerie green lights. Strange symbols covered the walls, pulsating faintly as if alive. Jack and Alex moved cautiously, guided by Lyra's intel. They encountered minimal resistance at first, thanks to Rachel's efforts, but tension mounted with each step. When they finally reached the core chamber, Alex knelt beside the mainframe, connecting wires and entering commands. "I need 5 minutes," he whispered, his hands steady despite the weight of responsibility. Outside, Rachel's squadron fought valiantly, buying time for the infiltration team. Plasma bolts streaked across the sky, lighting up the darkness. Explosions rocked nearby ships, sending debris spiraling into space. Through it all, Rachel remained calm, her focus unshakable. "Hold the line," she shouted, her voice cutting through the chaos. "We're almost there." Back inside the fortress, alarms blared as Krylos soldiers stormed into the chamber. Jack raised his weapon, firing to protect Alex. "Hurry," he yelled, dodging blasts and returning fire. Alex ignored the commotion, his eyes glued to the screen as lines of code scrolled rapidly. Just as the soldiers closed in, the core sparked and sputtered, signaling its shutdown. "It's done," Alex cried, leaping to his feet. The fortress trembled violently, its systems collapsing without the core to guide them. Lights flickered, gravity fluctuated, and walls groaned under the strain. Jack grabbed Alex and pulled him toward the exit, racing against time as explosions tore through the structure. Behind them, the fortress imploded, consumed by flames and collapsing inward like a dying star. Outside, Rachel gave the order to retreat. "Let's go home," she said, her voice breaking with emotion. The fleet regrouped and fled the destruction, leaving the Krylos stronghold in ruins. As they traveled back to Earth, silence fell across the ships. Survivors mourned the losses suffered during the mission, honoring those who had given their lives to secure victory. But amidst the grief, there was also joy, a profound sense of relief that the war was finally over. Back on Earth, celebrations erupted as news of the victory spread. Cities lit up with fireworks, music filled the streets, and people danced in the glow of liberation. Emily wrote a final article titled "A New Dawn," chronicling humanity's journey from despair to triumph. "We were tested in ways we never imagined," she wrote, "but we rose to the challenge, proving that together we are stronger than any enemy." In the months that followed, humanity began rebuilding. Skyscrapers rose from the ashes, farms flourished and reclaimed land, and schools reopened their doors. The scars of war remained, but they served as reminders of what had been overcome, what must never happen again. Jack and Emily settled into a quieter life, cherishing moments with their daughter Lily, who had grown wiser beyond her years. Lyra and the Zinari departed Earth, promising to return if humanity ever needed aid. Before leaving, Lyra thanked Jack and Emily for restoring her faith in unity and resilience.